Hello, Ramon. How are you?
Hi Maria, I'm good. I'm good. And how are you?
Very well, thank you. Early morning here in the UK and afternoon for you in the Philippines. First, let's apologize to our attendees. We've started a few minutes later for a few technical glitches. So, if anything happens during the live session, we have our marketing team behind the scenes that are going to help us to either recover the session or just apologize and cancel it. Uh, these things can happen. We apologize in advance if anything there. And please let me introduce Ramon Blanco, who is one of the IMSM's area managers in the Asian markets. And he has kindly invited me to join him and answer a few ISO related questions. I'm Maria Dimitrova, an ISO assessor and lead auditor. So there we go. Where should we start, Ramon? Anything you'd like me to explain for starters?
Well, I guess always the top question that most most customers would like to know is why ISO.
Oh, thank you. This is our ISO standard for organizations for who is the ISO uh, in the international is a know with one
Hi everyone. It appears we're having some technical difficulties with Maria's microphone. So I think she's going to try and reconnect and see if she can get a better connection. And we do apologise. We've had some issues this morning with the line. That's why we were delayed slightly. So we'll hang around for a minute, see if Maria can reconnect. If not, what we'll do probably is reschedule the session when we've got a better connection. I think it's just one of those days. It's been an odd couple of days and we're not sure why we're struggling this morning. But here's Maria. We'll let her back online now and see if everybody can hear her. So here she goes.
Hi again. Apologies. Please let me know if I'm breaking up. Uh, we have had some glitches, technical glitches here in the UK for several reasons. So we try to work on the best practice, and as you can see, recover the connection with you and tell you what is going on. So this is our contingency plan, and apparently it works. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Ramon. I was talking about the ISO as an organization. It has 166 country members, and in terms of practicalities, its standards are worldwide accepted, which means that organizations that operate ISO management systems can prove to their stakeholders worldwide that they use best practice in their operations. They focus on customer service with 9001. They care about the environment with 14001. They offer good uh, health and safety conditions not only for their employees but also suppliers, general public, visitors with 45,001. They have improved and are continuing with the improvements with regards to energy efficiency with 50,001 and so on. There are quite a lot of standards applicable to different sectors, different organizations that can actually give further assurance to stakeholders that we actually do think better than our competitors. This is key to ISO standards. It is all about trying always to work better and being able with the ISO standards to actually prove it. Ramon, um, shall we continue? I've prepared a couple of questions, I think.
Yes, Maria. Actually, some of the questions also. Thank you for that very nice and very informative response on why ISO. And I guess some of the questions that we also hear in the market actually is that which ISO uh, and secondly would be why what are the ISO standards that are compulsory?
Well, which ISO, it depends on what we want to achieve. So we would like to improve our customer service. Our focus on our customers would go with 9001, which is quality management. If we aim to make a better environmental impact, we'll decide maybe to add or to go for 14,001. So we need to evaluate what we want to achieve and then make a decision. So, if you as an organization would like to know which standard would better serve your interests and your targets and your strategic decisions, please call us, call Ramon, call the other area managers that I am, and they can professionally explain and help you assessing the advice, help you to find out which ISO standard would greatly benefit your organization, how and why. So our area managers and Ramon is obvious proof of it are very professional, very nice people, very competent. We train them well, and most of them have become quite the experts in ISO standards. So please feel free to call us, talk to our assessors, and get the best knowledge possible about what could cover your specific needs to make a valid, well informed strategic decision on your future. With regards to your second question about ISO standard and are they compulsory? Well, the ISO as an organization doesn't require that its standards be implemented. It's kind of a voluntary act on their side, on the organization side. What happens, however, is that sometimes organizations are required to have standards or some standards certified, but not because of the ISO as an organization, but because there might be some either legal and regulatory or contractual requirements for this. So let's say that you're part of a supply chain and your clients decide that they would like to make sure that they operate using best practice. The most logical thing would be for them to ask you, as the suppliers, also to do it and to be covered with the appropriate ISO standard. So this is why some organizations feel like there is some pressure, and there is some pressure for ISO standards to be implemented, but not because they have been designed to be mandatory or compulsory in any way, but because they're so good sets of best practice that organizations ask other organizations to demonstrate conformity because we all want to spend our money on best value. And best value is that value which ensures operating above what is strictly legal and using best practice as well. So this is why public tenders, private tenders, government tenders uh, certainly require ISO standards explicitly, Or in many countries, as Asian markets, uh, they might not be explicitly required, but once mm, organizations bid for those tenders, organizations with ISO standards get better positions during the selection process. Isn't that right, Ramon? You've been in touch with such organization, haven't you?
Yeah, actually, you mentioned government earlier, and in the Philippines, there has been cases where government has required ISO standard from the different bidders, and uh, I had an experience one time where the 27001 is a requirement for an IT project bidding. So
Yes, 27001, which is information security, is required in many countries. For instance, here in Europe, we have requirements for international standards to be implemented in some strategic sectors, in organizations delivering specific services above a certain number of employees. And interestingly enough, if you are supplier to such companies, it is very likely that your customers, as I've already explained, require that you also implement those standards because it makes their operations much more compliant, much easier for them to carry on. So, yeah, you'll find a few standards that are in high demand, and which ones are in high demand depends quite a lot of the territory. Ramon and I actually discussed it a few days ago, didn't we, Ramon? We were talking about 9001, which is the most commonly implemented standard for a very simple reason. It's been with us for 35 years now. Organizations know it, organizations feel comfortable with the idea of implementing it, aren't they?
yeah,
And then Ramon brought to my attention that in the Philippines, and I can confirm that it happens in other Asian markets as well, 27001 is in very high demand, as well as the other one was 22301, wasn't it, Ramon?
yes, that's correct, Maria. Well, thank you very much for that explanation. Another question that we normally also get here is that do this company or do I get more business if I have an ISO? Can you help us with that, Maria?
Thank you, Ramon. This is a very interesting question. Thank you very much. Now, you certainly get more business for a very simple reason. Once an organization starts improving its operations, its quality operating manner, they definitely get more business. If you work better, you get more business. But aside of this, actually, ISO standards help organizations prove that they work better with best practice into place, which creates further assurance to stakeholders. And if you can make them trust you, they will go with you. Now, with regards to how to evaluate the return on the investment, it might be tricky at the beginning. For starters, as I've already explained, not all the tenders explicitly require ISO standards in the tender documentation in your territories. So organizations can't see how much, cannot calculate how much they potentially could lose if they don't have the ISO standards implemented. This is slightly easier for us in Europe because most tenders clearly state the requirement for ISO standards. So organization can clearly see how much they're going to lose if they don't have the standards. So it depends very much on the territory. However, our research shows that organizations without ISO standards implemented are more likely not to get through the the process. On the other hand, with environmental management, with energy efficiency, it's slightly easier to actually calculate uh, the return on the investment, because we all know our legal requirements, potential fines if we don't comply with the environmental requirements. So um, this is kind of considerate all the obligations, potential fines, and evaluate the cost of an ISO implementation to make sure that we're still on top of our obligations, legal and contractual obligations as well. Slightly easier would be with 45,001, which is occupational health and safety, because we all know how much we spend on absenteeism, on sick leave, on compensations, on different potential fines from labor organizations, governmental organizations, etc. So with 45,001 as an occupational health and safety standard, we could actually calculate how much we could potentially not spend on those not very suitable issues. Why? Because 45,001 is very good standard. According to the International Labour Organization, every single year, nearly 3 million people lose their lives in work-related accidents or work-related illnesses. And nearly 400 million people get some injuries or sickness or illness caused by work-related issues. And the same organization has calculated that 99% of those could be actually avoided. The aim of 45,001 is to satisfy that requirement for huge reduction in work-related illness or injuries or any kind of accidents. So you can basically quite well calculate the potential savings from an ISO 45001 implementation. So it is not easy, but again, if you talk to our area managers, we'll manage to discuss it with you, to assess, to advise, and give you some further uh, information for you to make an informed decision. So yeah, tricky, but yes, we can assess and advise.
Great, thanks,
So
Maria. Well, here's another question, Maria. How much does it cost? Does it cost? I guess this is always, everybody's question. How much does an ISO implementation and certification cost?
thank you, Ramon. I know that this is a difficult question to answer. And this is a difficult question to answer basically because it depends on the standards that are more complex, more sophisticated, require more time, more resources. They're more technical as well. It depends also on the organization, how big the organization is. It depends on whether it already operates another management system. For instance, if they want to implement 7001 and they have 9001, it makes it easier, shorter. So it really depends. What can organization do to get it right, to know how much it is going to cost? First of all, talk to our assessors. Again, they will be able to assess and advise. Again, that is the time I say it. And secondly, I'm very pleased to assure you that, in my experience, customers are really surprised with the price, because organizations tend to thinking that ISO standards require lots of resources and a huge investment. Things have changed since 9001 was first published 35 years ago. So if you talk to us, you might be quite surprised when we talk you through the costs and resources that need to be devoted. So best thing, talk to us, please.
Thanks,
I
Maria.
just
Well, actually, they can, for those interested, they can call us up. We can do very, very short and quick presentation to introduce to you and give you an overview of IMSM, show you what is covered in the implementation, and of course, we can then assess your requirements and so that we can provide you with the appropriate costing for the implementation and certification for ISO.
absolutely brilliant. Ramon, shall we now wrap it up? We are slightly running out of time on the moment, but let me assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that next week, Ramon and I, and probably some of our area managers in ISO will join us for a talk on information security and ISO 27001.
Sure. Okay.
So, yeah. Shall we thank Caroline now as well and ask her to just end the session? As usual, Caroline, can you please take over now? Thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.